because we were supposed to talk about the old yesterday, and it's not too many slides. And then tomorrow we'll talk about the new kingdom. All right, so the old kingdom. The old kingdom of Egypt is what we typically think of because this is when they built the Sphinx. This is when the majority of the pyramids were built. And this is where we're going to actually have like the best building of Egypt, which is kind of crazy because it's the oldest, but it's going to be the very best. So when you think of Egypt in your heads, probably the old kingdom is going to be the time you think about. This is the time we talked about where pharaohs like Narmer and Khufu wound up making a very strong central government where they had the absolute monarchy, you know. But they did something that might be a little confusing because they were very strong rulers, but they didn't keep their own army. In fact, every city had its own army. Now, what can we predict would be an issue if every city has their own army? So we've got Madeline Kate in Memphis with her army, Karachi and Thebes with her army. We've got Samuel over in Giza with his army. What's the potential problem? Not Chinaza, Karachi, sorry.
Wait, the problem is that if a country invades or someone's like, I'm going to invade Egypt, like even if they somehow they go up with the natural barriers of Egypt, like all of them are going to be like they're gonna like since they're all like separated, their armies are naturally just going to be smaller, and since the armies are smaller, then this one big army could just take out all these smaller armies and then slowly conquer Egypt. But like and also that means that each city has that means one city could have control, there could be fighting, because no one's really united in this
yeah.
like no one's united. They could be like bunch of fights and no one's really working all together if all of them have different like armies.
Definitely, yeah, they're not united. I love how you have that. And what are you gonna do if Caleb's over in his city and he's annoying you?
I'm probably gonna attack him.
Yeah, exactly. And the Pharaoh keeps asking you to send more money, more supplies. What are you gonna eventually wind up doing?
Attacking him?
Yeah, you're gonna say, I don't need you. I've got my own army. I could be the boss. So as the cities got mad at the Pharaoh saying, I want more stone, more workers, more this, more that, eventually Madeline Kate says, well, I could be the boss. And then Ryland says, well, I could be the boss. And Samuel says, well, I'm going to be the boss. And so we have the Egyptians are going to wind up going and rebelling against their pharaohs. And at the same time, kind of like Karachi was saying, we're going to have the Bedouins going and attacking the Egyptians. Now, the Bedouins are the tribes that are going to be in the Arabian Peninsula. So these are the people that are going to go and be used to being in the desert. That's just where they lived. So they're going to have no problem going through that Sinai Peninsula, attacking the Egyptians. So it's complete chaos at the end of the Old Kingdom. And so the only thing that happens then is all the local governors, like Nick says, well, I don't have time for this. I should be Pharaoh. I'm the boss. And, Aaron says the same thing. And everyone just basically says that they are their own boss. And they rebel against the Pharaoh, and our old kingdom falls apart. Mariah just teasing us with a moment. It was funny. I saw a video on Facebook with this teacher. He's like playing a piano and like singing a song, begging his students to keep the camera on. Like, is anyone there? Am I all alone? All right, so some famous pharaohs of the Old Kingdom. We've got Djoser. He's going to build the step pyramid that we looked at. We have Sneferu, who built the bent pyramid and several others. And, of course, Khufu is going to have the Great Pyramid of Giza being checked out. Now, you don't have to write this down, but, it's kind of fun. Sneferu's name means one who is perfectly made. And he tried to build pyramids because he had the dream of having that perfect pyramid that we think of, like the Pyramid of Giza. But it's not going to be till Khufu that we wind up having that come to fruition. All right. So we have a couple So about 100 years of civil war. The Egyptians are going to get back together. And I want to remind you that little C right there, that means circa, that means around, because we don't know until, Nicholas lets us borrow his time machine and we can go back and check it out. We are not going to be able to know the exact dates of these things, particularly because, like, when Mariah takes power, she really didn't like how Divine ruled in front before her. So she's going to erase Divine's name on things, scratch it off. That's why we see some of these statues, like, for example, we see Senseret III. This nose is smashed off, and Sobek Neferu, her nose is smashed off. And the pharaohs actually did that afterwards to try to make it so their Ka wouldn't be able to find them, and to try to, like, kind of ruin their afterlife because they didn't like them beforehand. Now, Mentuhotep II will wind up being the nomarch who has the power, the ability to conquer all of Egypt. And what's interesting is the Middle Kingdom, like, Egypt is going to be very wealthy from trade at this time, but they've lost their ability. They try to build pyramids during the Middle Kingdom, and they're like garbage pyramids. They do not work very well. Most of them don't last. So it's funny, the pyramids that last today are mostly the Old Kingdom pyramids. We only have a little bit of these Middle Kingdom pyramids being built, and they're all smaller, and like I said, they're not as good. This is going to matter for us when we're studying next week, because we're going to look at ancient Nubia, or Kush. Nubia means land of gold in Egyptian. And during this time, the Egyptians are going to rule over them, but we're going to see how that's going to switch next week when we talk about Nubia. And so, like I said, tons of trade, although they weren't very good at building pyramids anymore. But they are going to wind up building a lot of awesome, really cool things. Like, for example, Senseret I is going to wind up going. Yeah, well, it's funny, Karachi. I wound up correcting myself because I was first going to call you Chdalu, then I was like, no, then like Chinaza. And it came out of my mouth as soon as I was like, no, that's wrong. It's Karachi. I'm very sorry. Like I said, my brain's not working well. I'm feeling really, really
No,
bad.
because my sisters and dad were about to leave for my sister's like dental appointment,
Yeah.
and that's right when you said it, and they just started laughing.
Yeah. She's got cool sisters. I like her family. Anyways, Egypt is going to make a lot of buildings that are not tombs during this time. Like I said, Senseret I is going to build the White Chapel, which you can still visit today, which is going to be this beautiful alabaster, which is like this white stone place for praying. And the last ruler is actually going to be a lady, Sobek Neferu, which that's a tongue twister. Try saying that 30 times fast. And one of the cool things about Egypt, which is fantastic, is Egypt is one of the few ancient civilizations where pretty consistently every now and then we're going to get powerful girls in charge. It's pretty rare. We'll get that in China, and we'll talk about Empress Wu and a couple other empresses that are going to be girls ruling. But in Egypt, we'll talk about a couple girls as well. Now, this Middle Kingdom, as we know, ends, though, because the Hyksos come. And the Hyksos had better weapons. The Hyksos had bronze. So we've got Nicholas here. He's got a bronze sword. So when he swings his sword down at Avery, who has iron, guess what? Poor Avery's sword just breaks because the bronze is stronger. They also have the horse-drawn chariots. Now, these chariots, I likened them earlier to like an attack helicopter because they were so much faster. Most people are on their foot soldiers. These chariots go through. They sometimes run over people. They trample them with the horses. On the back, you have Mariah with spears poking people, making them look Swiss cheese. You have Caleb shooting bows and arrows at people, or just arrows with his bow at people. Danielle has swords slicing and dicing. And they're just so fast. There's nothing anyone can do about it. It just destroys foot soldiers. They're going to have better bows and arrows. They're going to have the Kapesh sword. They're going to have armor. They're just going to totally blow the Egyptians out of the water. But they're going to make the mistake and show the Egyptians how to use those weapons. What's really cool is that the Hyksos actually worshipped the Egyptian god Seth, which was the god of chaos, the god of war. So we see this Egyptian mythology is going to go and be very, very big. And here we see an image of the sword that they use, the Kopesh sword that they have there. Yes, Austin, what is your question, sir? I'm stopping the recording.